Tim McGraw sat in the sterile hospital room, his hand trembling over the call button. He had just heard the words, "Faith, I'm sorry." The doctor's voice lingered in the air like a stunned echo. Faith Hill's diagnosis was more dire than anyone had feared. In that solemn heartbeat, Tim felt the world tilt. He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing hers with desperate tenderness. Everything changed in an instant. News of her diagnosis spread like wildfire through their Nashville community. The family's private heartbreak became public concern within hours. Fans offered prayers, celebrities sent messages, and the local church organized vigils. Tim watched the notifications cascade across his phone screen, each alert carrying both comfort and sorrow. He felt the weight of every message as a collective embrace, but also a reminder of the fragile line between hope and despair. That morning, Tim stood beside Faith's bed and watched her chest rise and fall. She was pale, her hair tied back, eyes closed. He remembered her vibrant laugh, the spark she brought to every stage and every room they entered together. A lump formed in his throat as he recalled their first dance at Musicians Under the Stars. Now that same hand held her fragile fingers with solemn strength and reverence. He recalled the concerts they had shared, from sold-out arenas to church gatherings. The roar of the crowd became their heartbeat, syncing with every breath and chord. Faith's voice soared beside his, melding gospel with country. Together, they composed anthems of love and resilience. Fans felt their chemistry as an electric current pulsing through speakers and hearts alike. Now, in this hushed room, Tim grappled with knowledge their final duet might be forever unfinished. Tim recalled morning after their final tour when Faith practiced in a silent studio, her reflection dancing across the mirror. Her notes rose and fell beauty, each phrase whispering of memories they shared. He stood at the doorway, guitar at his feet, longing to capture another song that could freeze time. Instead, he poured soul into a notepad, quivering as he penned words he feared he might never sing aloud in the days that followed. Tim remained tethered to Faith's side. He recounted their years together, childhood summers in Louisiana, midnight songwriting sessions in Nashville, shared laughter after sold-out shows. Each recollection became comfort and plea, binding them through memory. Nurses paused as they spoke, honoring those fragments of normalcy amid illness. When fatigue overcame her, Tim brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered gratitude for every second. Each evening, Tim sat in their living room, surrounded by gold records chronicling their shared triumphs. He approached the piano, its keys worn from Faith's playing, and began her favorite hymn. The melody rose in beauty, stirring memories of family road trips, moments on stage, fireside nights. As the music filled the space, it became both tribute and farewell. Tears blurred his vision, yet his heart found solace in every note. Sirens echoed and mornings began with the click of medical machines. Tim learned to speak in hushed tones, turning reality into whispered prayers. He memorized every nurse's name, offering a gentle squeeze on her hand or a word of thanks. In quiet moments, he sat at Faith's bedside, replaying videos of backyard barbecues and award show surprises. Each laugh reminded him of life beyond illness, a reminder that hope can flourish amid despair. That on the morning Faith went home, Tim arranged fresh flowers on the windowsill, sunlight glancing off pastel petals. He wrapped her in a soft shawl she favored on cold nights. As she stood, his heart pounded with dread and hope entwined. He guided her to the door, each step balancing support and trembling anticipation. Camera's hospice recorded the scene, but for Tim it remained a profound moment of shared quiet grace. He paused at the archway where laughter and tears had once mingled. Turning back, he caught Faith's gaze and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Words escaped him, so he simply mouthed, "I'm here." Nurses held their breath. Through her tears, Faith offered a smile, her eyes speaking volumes. Then Tim stepped into the corridor's harsh light and quietly bid his final goodbye. Every footstep echoed the love they shared. He arranged private press statements and limited the interview pool to longtime friends who understood Faith's need for dignity. Each morning, he updated fans through a brief video message. "We're taking this one day at a time," he said with a steady gaze, voice tinged with quiet resolve. The response was overwhelming, thousands flocking to share their support online. sending flowers, prayers, and handwritten notes that arrived in bundles at their home. Amid the media whirlwind, Tim carved out solitary hours for reflection in their home studio, a warm sanctuary lined with wood paneling and decades of gold records. He revisited melodies they had once sung together, his guitar strings echoing against the walls like distant memories. Late nights, he sat at the old, upright piano, composing a song that would become his final public ode to faith. A melody of hope tinged with acceptance that he filled pages of his leather-bound journal with lyrics that danced between raw vulnerability and the soothing reassurance they had always found in each other. Lines like, "When the light grows dim, I'll be your guide, and every note you breathe remains inside me," flowed from his pen with surprising fluidity. These words were more than songwriting. They were a vow, an unspoken promise that even if Faith's voice fell silent, their harmony would endure. When the song was ready, he invited a handful of trusted musicians into the studio. A muted gathering of steel-string guitarists, pedal steel players, and a string quartet whose bow strokes had accompanied Faith at countless live shows. With the microphone live and mics capturing ambient resonance, Tim's voice cracked only once, on the final refrain, before he steadied himself and delivered a soaring, heartfelt chorus. The room remained hushed in that moment, as if every person present sensed they were witnessing both a musical masterpiece and a deeply personal farewell. With the final mix complete, Tim made the difficult decision to share the song with the world the very next morning. He posted it at dawn, accompanied by a photo of Faith smiling under stage lights, microphone in hand. The caption read simply, "For my greatest love, may these notes carry you through the darkest night." Within minutes, fans around the globe began streaming the track, flooding social platforms with testimonials of how the song soothed their own fears and reminded them of life's fragile beauty. Major radio stations interrupted regular programming to honor Tim's tribute, dedicating entire hours to the ballad, interspersed with recorded messages from fans sharing how Faith's music had touched their lives. Country music charts responded by placing the song atop the digital downloads list within hours, a rare feat fueled by both emotional resonance and collective solidarity. Critics praised the raw honesty of the lyrics and the haunting vulnerability in Tim's delivery, highlighting how the duet they once shared would forever echo in this solo moment of tribute. While the world witnessed Tim's public farewell through song, he balanced each broadcast with private moments of reflection. Away from cameras, he visited Faith at home, where sunlight filtered through lace curtains onto her favorite reading nook. He would read passages from her beloved poems, recount stories of their adventures on tour, and play the piano motif he had woven into the song's bridge. In those intimate interludes, the distance between artist and spouse vanished, replaced by two souls entwined in shared history and unwavering love. As weeks passed, Tim found solace in small triumphs. Faith's smile when the chorus soared, her hand squeezed at each poignant lyric. On her final hospital evening, they sat beneath fairy lights strung above the bed. Unamplified, Tim sang their favorites, each note softly. When the last chord faded, tears of gratitude shimmered in Faith's eyes. They held each other, aware this might be their final duet. In the days that followed, tributes poured in from around the world. Video clips of Tim's eulogy circulated on social media, viewers pausing mid-scroll to listen. Fans held candlelight vigils outside the chapel and shared stories of how Faith's music had lifted them during hardship. Streaming numbers for her catalog skyrocketed, reminding the world of her enduring gift. Amid the public outpouring, Tim retreated to his home studio and continued working on the song he had begun, a track now dedicated to life's delicate balance. He renamed it "Every Measure with You," weaving in melodies from Faith's own compositions as a quiet homage. Late nights, he sat alone, recording new verses, shaping a musical testament to a love that never truly fades. As dawn approached, Tim found solace knowing their harmony lived on through every listener touched by her. As the final embers of the candlelight vigils dissolved into mourning across the nation, Tim felt an urgency to transform mourning into purpose. In the days after Faith's memorial service, he retreated briefly from the public eye, exchanging the flood of condolences for silent reflection at their ranch in Louisiana. Surrounded by moss-draped oaks and the faint chorus of cicadas, He wandered the wooden porches where he and Faith once sipped coffee at dawn. Every creak of a floorboard seemed to echo Faith's laughter. He set his guitar aside and opened a battered journal where she had sketched song ideas, half-finished titles like Morning Grace and Light of a New Day. He reached for a pen, scribbling a simple dedication. For Faith, every melody begins and ends with you. In the cool pre-dawn light 2 days later, he returned to Nashville for the first time since her diagnosis. The city hummed with a mixture of sorrow and solidarity. Morning radio dedicated airtime to Faith's classic hits. Street art blossomed with painted murals of her smiling face. And outside the Grand Ole Opry, fans left bouquets and handwritten notes at a makeshift shrine. Tim paused at the Opry's iconic doors, his heart swelling at the sight. He carried Faith's favorite straw hat, draping it over his guitar amplifier backstage. When the stagehands arrived, they greeted him with hushed nods and tears in their eyes. Tonight's show would include a tribute performance, Tim's first public appearance since he posted their final duet. Backstage, Tim adjusted his microphone stand and scanned the set list. He had rewritten the order to open with Every Measure with You, followed by Faith and his classic duet, It's Your Love. His fingers trembled slightly as he tuned his guitar. When the house lights dimmed and the curtain rose, he stepped into a hush so profound it felt sacred. This one's for Faith, he said softly, voice catching at the first word. Then he strummed a gentle chord, the arena's sound system carrying his melody like a warm embrace. Throughout the performance, images of Faith, on stage, in candid behind-the-scenes moments, and holding hands with Tim, flickered on a giant video screen behind him. As the final note lingered, tears glistened on thousands of faces. The applause that followed was not thunderous cheers, but the sound of collective hearts beating in gratitude and grief. After the tribute show, Tim spent late hours in the recording studio, finishing a companion track titled Carry Me Home. Its lyrics spoke of faith as a guiding light and promised that even when one voice falls silent, another could carry its echo forward. When your song fades in the night, I'll be singing low, he whispered as he recorded the final vocal pass. In mixing sessions, he added subtle violin lines to mirror Faith's gentle counter melodies, ensuring her spirit resonated in every bar. He wanted this album to feel like a conversation between them, her echoes woven into his new compositions. Meanwhile, charitable foundations began to mobilize in Faith's name. Tim announced the Love Endures Fund, dedicated to family-centered health initiatives for music industry professionals facing severe diagnoses. He poured the royalties from both Every Measure with You and Carry Me Home into seed capital for the fund, pledging to match public donations dollar for dollar. Within hours of the announcement, fan communities raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Musicians around the globe offered benefit concerts, online live streams starring country stars, pop icons, and gospel choirs, all united under Faith's banner of compassion. In interviews, Tim spoke of Faith not as a teller of tears, but as a messenger of hope. He described her final days as a testament to resilience. How she insisted on choosing her favorite nurse, crocheted baby blankets for patients' families, and laughed at his attempts to sing old camp songs off-key. Each anecdote painted a portrait of Faith's unwavering generosity and her belief that music was a balm for the soul. Journalists found themselves moved not only by the raw grief, but by the life-affirming energy Faith embodied, even in her most fragile moments. As weeks turned into months, Tim found himself at a crossroads. Should he resume touring as planned, or pause to protect his emotional core? He decided on a compromise, a summer mini-tour titled Harmony and Healing. 6 intimate shows in small venues, churches, community centers, and a restored barn where they first met, designed to foster personal connection over spectacle. Tickets sold out within minutes. Fans wrote letters of gratitude for an experience that felt less like a performance and more like a communal gathering. At each stop, Tim opened the floor for attendees to share stories of how Faith's songs shaped their lives, turning concerts into collective memorials and celebrations. Eventually, the summer tour drew to a close at the very barn where he and Faith first danced under string lights. As he closed the final show with an unplugged rendition of There You'll Be, Tim looked skyward and felt her presence in every note. He realized that his music, like Faith's, was never truly about grand stadiums or chart-topping hits, but about forging human connections. And as he strummed the closing chord, he whispered into the quiet night, "Thank you, Faith." Our song goes on. Each night on the Harmony and Healing Tour, Tim stepped onto humble stages that seemed worlds away from sold-out arenas, but carried a spirit just as grand. In a restored church hall in Franklin, Tennessee, warm wooden pews reflected candlelight rather than stadium floodlights. Tim opened with "Every Measure with You," his voice gentle amid stained glass shadows. Midway through the song, a woman in the front row lifted a photograph of Faith at their wedding, tears glistening as Tim dedicated the next verse to her memory. Between songs, he invited audience members to share memories. A firefighter spoke of Faith's song lifting his spirits after a rough shift. A young mother recounted how Faith's lullabies soothed her sleepless baby. Each story wove a tapestry of communal healing that turned grief into shared strength. In a small community center outside Memphis, local volunteers baked pies and brownies for intermission. Tim paused mid-set to sample a slice of cherry pie and laugh at the dusty fingerprints still clinging to the plate. He talked about how Faith loved peanut butter cookies and cold milk after long days on the road, then launched into a playful guitar riff she used to tease him with. Laughter rippled through the room, a reminder that even in the shadow of loss, moments of delight could still shine bright. He closed with a stripped-down rendition of "Let's Make Love," Faith's favorite up-tempo duet, and watched couples sway as if back on their wedding night. One of the most unforgettable evenings unfolded in a converted barn at a friend's equestrian farm. Warm hay smelled in the air, and string lights hung overhead like constellations. By lantern glow, Tim performed barefoot, reminding himself of the barefoot Faith once was during impromptu living room rehearsals. He sang "Carry Me Home" as the audience held lanterns aloft, flickering soft light across hay bale seats. In the hush that followed the final chord, the only sound was the wind rustling through barn doors and the collective inhale of hearts uniting in reverence. At each venue, Tim took time before showtime to meet audience members face to face. He listened to personal stories: a high school choir director who invited him to visit her students, a cancer survivor who credited Faith's music with giving her hope during treatment, and a retired naval officer who carried a worn cassette of their duet on every deployment. Tim signed guitars, swapped jokes, and wrapped arms around strangers who felt less like strangers by the end of the night. Those intimate encounters replenished his own resolve. He wasn't just performing songs. He was carrying forward a legacy of connection Faith had built over decades. On the fourth night, in a small New England town hall, a surprise guest joined him on stage, a teenage girl whose mother had died the year before. She had learned "It's Your Love" on guitar and asked Tim if she could play and sing her mother's favorite lines. Tim handed her his guitar, stepped to the side, and watched as she poured her heart into the melody. When she finished, tears streamed down the faces of everyone in that hall. Tim embraced her and whispered, "Faith would be so proud." That moment became a viral clip online, sparking a flood of fan-made performances and cover versions dedicated to their own lost loved ones. Behind the scenes, Tim reflected on how Faith always championed emerging talent. He began selecting one local artist at each tour stop to join him for a duet on their own song. From a blues singer in Mississippi to a folk trio in Vermont, these guest spots shone a spotlight on new voices, embodying Faith's belief in lifting others. Each collaboration felt like a passing of the torch, a musical bridge from one generation to the next, and Tim delighted in seeing each guest beam with newfound confidence. By the final tour stop, the very barn where they first danced, Tim prepared for a simple closing ritual. Before the concert began, he invited survivors, caregivers, and medical staff to form a circle on stage. With Faith's favorite hymn playing softly, he led them in a vow to support one another, to share stories, and to believe in healing through community. Then he sang "There You'll Be," unamplified, his voice carrying through open barn rafters and out into the summer night. As the last note faded, each participant placed a single white rose at the center of the stage, a symbol of remembrance and hope. That night, Tim walked through the silent barn, pausing to touch the worn wood and remembering Faith's laughter echoing through these rafters. He whispered a final goodbye as a lone firefly drifted through an open window, Though the Harmony and Healing Tour had drawn to a close, the connections forged in those 6 intimate performances would endure, in letters shared online, in local benefit concerts organized by inspired fans, and in the ongoing work of the Love Endures Fund. As he loaded the last guitar into a waiting truck, Tim felt both the ache of an ending and the promise of a beginning. Their duet may have ended on stage that final night, but in every story shared, every song sung in kitchens and cars, and every rose placed in dimly lit barns, Faith's melody lived on. In the quiet days that followed the Harmony and Healing Tour, Tim McGraw returned to routine even as his heart carried new purpose. Morning light filtered through the windows of his Nashville home, illuminating photographs of Faith perched on mantelpieces and framed gold records beside family snapshots. He spent hours in the studio refining tracks for an acoustic album, reimagined versions of his classics, each gently threaded with Faith's backing vocals recorded years before. Technology allowed him to weave her voice into newly laid instrumentation, crafting duets that transcended time. When the first mix played back, her harmony melding with his baritone once more, he felt her presence beside him, guiding every note and infusing each measure with quiet grace. Beyond music, Tim devoted himself to expanding the Love Endures Fund. He visited hospitals across Tennessee and Louisiana, meeting families supported by the fund's grants. He listened to stories of parents who borrowed money for treatments, of children who received art therapy funded by contributions in Faith's name. In each ward and waiting room, he offered encouragement without fanfare, sharing laughter over inside jokes and wiping away tears with genuine warmth. Local news crews captured moments of him handing over envelopes or hugging a grateful mother. Yet Tim insisted these acts remain unpublicized, believing charity thrives in humility. News of anonymous donations continued to flow in under the fund's banner, and the ripple effect created networks of community care Faith would have celebrated. Meanwhile, the acoustic album, titled Every Measure With You, debuted on streaming platforms and independent record stores. Critics lauded its intimate production and emotional authenticity, noting how Faith's spectral harmonies elevated each song from nostalgic homage to living conversation. Fans wrote in from Europe, Asia, and Australia, sharing stories of healing through music and describing how hearing Faith's voice again felt like a balm on old wounds. Tim responded personally to dozens of letters, sending handwritten notes on stationery featuring a sunflower motif, a subtle nod to Faith's favorite flower. In every reply, he reminded listeners that love endures in memory and melody, and that every listener carried a duet of their own in life's unfolding symphony. That a documentary crew granted extensive access to Tim's creative process, released a film chronicling this period of transformation. The film interwove footage of the final tour, recording sessions, hospital visits, and quiet mornings of reflection. Critics called it a moving portrait of grief, resilience, and the power of art to forge healing. At its premiere in Nashville, Tim walked the red carpet beside Faith's mother, both of them dressed simply in denim and leather, a deliberate choice to honor faithfulness over glamour. In the theater, the opening scene showed a young Faith and Tim dancing under barn lights, the camera then cutting to the empty stage where their first duet echoed off the rafters. Audiences gasped, laughed, and cried together, united by the universal experience of love gained and lost. In subsequent months, Tim expanded his outreach by launching the Love Endures Scholarship, offering financial support to music students coping with family health crises. He held songwriting workshops at community centers, teaching techniques that Faith had perfected: how to capture emotion in a single phrase, how to turn personal trials into communal anthems. He invited scholarship recipients onto his stages to perform alongside him, spotlighting emerging talent while reminding everyone that music binds generations and stories. Each workshop ended with a group performance of Faith's There You'll Be, voices raised in unison as a vow to carry her light forward. On the one-year anniversary of Faith's diagnosis, Tim held a private memorial concert at the barn where their journey had begun. Candles lined the stage, petals scattered across hay bale seating, and a single microphone stood at center. Friends, family, and caregivers gathered, sharing memories in between acoustic performances and readings of Faith's favorite poetry. When Tim stepped forward to sing Every Measure With You, the lyrics took on fresh resonance. Even when the sky falls down slash even when the light grows dim slash I'll be there. Till the music ends slash every measure with you, friend. As his voice quavered over the final refrain, a gentle breeze drifted through open barn doors, carrying the sound into the early spring night. Tim paused to brush his hand against the weathered wood. He whispered a final promise, to live each day in honor of Faith's legacy, through music, compassion, and unwavering faith. He understood now that farewells are not endings, but new beginnings. Every chord he played, every charitable gesture he made, and every song he shared would be an echo of her love. And so, though the stage lights had dimmed on their duet, their harmony lived on, in every heart touched by their story, in every measure carried forward by those who dared to sing with courage and grace.